everyone. Welcome. I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance. We're so happy to have Rebecca Friedrichs here with us today. Rebecca will be speaking with us in just a few minutes. But first, when Rebecca Friedrichs spoke at the Republican National Convention this past August, her brief yet powerful speech was one of the most important speeches at the convention. The education system and the education of our children may be the most important issue of our time. In fact, one of the three pillars of the Jewish Republican Alliance is education. So it is very fitting and proper that Rebecca is here with us today. In her speech, Rebecca told us the truth about the powerful teachers' unions in this country. And she said, and I quote, "They've intentionally rewritten American history to perpetuate division, pervert the memories of our American founders, and disparage our Judeo-Christian values. Their lenient discipline policies have morphed our schools," she said, "into war zones, and they back defunding police and abolishing ICE." I thought that was a great quote. And also Rebecca said in this great speech, she said, "The only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated moral citizenry that can self-govern." And I thought that was amazing. If John Adams was alive today, it is clear to me that he would have agreed with Rebecca when he said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Ronald Reagan also would have agreed with Rebecca. In his farewell address in 1989, he said, "One of the things that I am proudest of in the past 8 years is the resurgence of national pride that I call the new patriotism. This national feeling is good," he said, "but it won't count for much, and it won't last unless it is grounded in thoughtlessness and knowledge. An informed patriotism is what we want," he said. "And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?" He went on to say, "We've got to do a better job across America's nation, or across America, to talk about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise, and freedom is special and rare. It's fragile, it needs protection. We've got to teach history based on not what's in fashion," he said, "but what's important." So that's what Friedrichs, Adams, and Reagan have to say about education. And now a quote from Karasik. "The entire future of our nation will always be determined by what core values and beliefs we pass on to our children, and how well we are able to educate our citizens about morality, goodness, and ethical monotheism. It is the job of every generation to tell the story about the American people who come from different backgrounds, and yet are united in our love of freedom, liberty, justice, and Judeo-Christian values." So thank you all for being here. And now it's my pleasure to introduce fellow co-founder Mitch Silberman. Mitch.
Hello, JRA community. It's always so great when we are together. It's for the children. Have you heard that line before? When I hear a certain party utter those words, you know what I've learned? It ain't about the children. I have a better phrase for you. How about for kids and country? Far more sincere and authentic. Like you, I am deeply concerned about the future our children are not only going to inherit, but also run. This is the world that they're going to be running for all of us very, very soon. Will they continue to thrive in the greatest country the world has ever produced? Or are we going to sadly morph into yet another socialist dream, which always turns out to be a nightmare? Listen, people are flawed, so systems and governments are going to be flawed too. But there are so many reasons why for decades, people from all over the world risk everything to come here. They're certainly not trying to escape our beloved country, despite what the leftist celebrities tell you they're going to do all the time, and yet they never do. So let me see a show of hands. How many of you watched the Democratic National Convention? I can't see you, but I do appreciate your willingness to participate. If you did watch the DNC, I'm sorry. Now, how many of you watched the Republican National Convention? Wasn't that a brilliant production? This is the most consequential election of our lifetime, maybe ever. And I want you to think for a moment of all the patriotic conservatives that President Trump and his team had to consider as potential speakers for this monumentous event. If you recall, the evening opened up with a beautifully moving short film narrated by John Voight. He is a huge supporter of America, Israel, and of course, the president. The first speaker at this event was Charlie Kirk, a true rising star who has spoken to the JRA several times. And the second speaker on the opening night of the Republican National Convention is our guest today, Rebecca Friedrichs. That tells you what President Trump and his team think of Rebecca and the amazing work that she is doing. She is the living embodiment of what it means to help create the future for our children to flourish in. And now I get to introduce Rebecca. Let me give you a little bit of background on her. As a 28-year-old public school teacher, Rebecca was forced to fund unions whose politics and divisive tactics degraded her profession, our schools, and our national character. Her lawsuit, Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association, which sought to free teachers from forced unionism, was actually argued before the Supreme Court in 2016. Poised to rule 5-4 in Rebecca's favor, the court unfortunately became deadlocked after the sudden passing of Justice Scalia. Determined to stop state and national teachers unions from destroying our schools and American values, and sensing that millions of like-minded supporters were stunned and discouraged, Rebecca refused to give up. Her book, Standing Up to Goliath, told through dozens of powerful personal accounts, is Rebecca's expose of the bully unions. Rebecca also founded For Kids and Country, a national movement of parents, teachers, students, faith leaders, and citizens uniting to restore our schools and culture. Rebecca, welcome.
It is so great to be here. Thank you, Mitch and Bruce. Hello, Jewish Republican Alliance.
Thank you, Rebecca. We're so happy you're here today. You've been a champion of trying to help our education system be more true to the values this country stands for. Can you talk a little bit about some of the struggles and some of the things you've tried to accomplish and the battles you've had to face recently?
Wow, it would take weeks to talk about all the different battles, but I guess I'll just kind of go back into my teaching career. My husband, a professor, also taught 42 years. My stepmom was a teacher for 39 years. I would still be in the classroom with the kids if it wasn't for the unions destroying our classrooms, destroying our culture, and indoctrinating our kids. So I left the classroom after 28 years to fight for the children and for our country. What I discovered when I was on the inside was that even great teachers who are doing an outstanding job are trapped inside of a corrupt system. So what I tried to do, I stepped up as a union leader and thinking I could make a difference, bang head against wall. But what did happen was I learned a lot from being on the inside of the unions. I saw their corruption. I learned that they are 100% not reformable. You cannot reform these unions. They want to be corrupt. They are corrupt. They are completely infiltrated by Marxism. And really, the reason that our schools are falling apart is because the unions want our schools to fall apart. They are doing exactly what they've set out to do. So I just discovered that it was time to fight the unions and to, it's my goal to get them out of our schools 100% so that we can put parents and great teachers back in charge again and serve our kids. So because I am exposing unions, you can imagine, I've been called the spawn of Satan, the pawn of the wealthy 1%. You name it, I've been called it. And I consider that a compliment because when you're exposing something that's evil, something that's damaging children, destroying our liberties, purposely undermining educational excellence in this country, the only way to keep a free republic, as you pulled from my speech, is with a well-educated, moral citizenry that can self-govern. So if you don't want to keep a republic, what do? First, you undermine the education. That's what they've done. You undermine the morals. They're doing that in our schools. as well through the unions. So I just keep fighting them, and I keep coming up against their nasty words. But I have to say, it's nasty words. Big deal. We're going to keep on fighting. I don't care what nasty words they say. And I hope that more people will join us in the fight in exposing these unions. They're the true problem, not good teachers.
Well, Rebecca, you're reminding me of an important lesson people our age learned as kids, sticks and stones, right? You're living through that, which is great. You mean you're not offended? You don't need a safe space when you hear bad words?
No, oh no.
Great. I've met you on a few occasions and seen you speak, and you're amazing. Can you share with our audience some of the more shocking examples of things that you discovered, either in curriculum or laws trying to be passed?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is if you have any little kids within earshot, just get them out of the room right now, and then I'll be honest about what's going on in our schools. And again, this is all being pushed by unions. They call themselves teachers, they call themselves unions. They are neither one. They are Marxists posing as teachers and posing as unions. So don't let them fool you. Here's what they brought into our schools. In California, we have a new law called the California Healthy Youth Act. There's nothing healthy about it. This law is being duplicated in blue states all across the country. And what they've done is brought something called comprehensive sexuality education into our classrooms. So now our little kids, 10, 11-year-olds, are being told that they should have anal sex. They're being told about oral on anal sex. They're being told that they have the right to get an abortion without parental knowledge or permission. So you could drop your child off at school in the morning, not even know she's pregnant or not know his girlfriend's pregnant. The school could send your child to a Planned Parenthood clinic, have an abortion, come back to school, you pick the child up in the afternoon, you have no idea and you never know. It's been going on for years. It's not just California. They are, and they're telling teachers that we have to teach children that they have the right to know these things and that their parents are not allowed to know that they've been to a clinic, that they have a right to get all birth control methods without their parental knowledge, that they're now telling preschoolers, when you were born, your parents didn't know your gender, so they assigned you a gender. You'll figure out your gender someday from a spectrum of genders, an ever-growing spectrum of genders. So just these few things I've shared so far about the sex ed, they're a direct attack on every religion I know. God created us male and female. There are two genders. No, but our schools know better than God, and they're going to turn our kids against us, against the truth of God. And then the anal sex, all we have to do is go to the Old Testament to find out about how God feels about that. So there's this undermining of parental authority, undermining of parental rights. In most states now, in a majority of states, parents do not have the right to see their children's medical records once they hit the age of 14. This was all pushed by teachers' unions. The other things they've brought in are very dangerous discipline policies that they were able to bring them in through the Obama administration. The Trump administration immediately removed them, but many states had already enshrined them into their laws. So in California, for example, we cannot suspend children for willful defiance of authority. We can't discipline children who have any color in their skin. And it's all arbitrary. We had to bring our numbers down to a level to make the government happy. So children who are out of control are controlling the classroom now. And our classrooms have truly become war zones. Teachers don't realize that it's their unions pushing these things. The other thing is you mentioned earlier, the anti-American curricula. We'll just talk about the 1619 project, for example. I have an editorial I wrote about that. If you'd like to send that out to your audience, gives a little bit of background, but basically teaching our children that this country is really based on something that happened in 1619, where some slaves were brought over into the state of Virginia, rather than our country being based on pilgrims who landed in 1620. They are completely obliterating the truth, twisting the narrative, and telling our children that America is systemically racist, that if you have white skin, you are automatically a racist for your whole life. There's nothing you could do about it. It doesn't matter. You know, I have a brother who's black. It doesn't matter that I have a brother who's black. I'm still, in their eyes, I'm racist. Everyone's racist. So what are teachers' unions and their friends in the Democrat Party? They give all their money to Democrats, and their allies, a coalition of over 200 groups, have come together, and they are dividing, destroying, dividing parents and kids, dividing teachers and parents, dividing Americans based on color, based on class. It's everything that's against America. They don't like our melting pot. They don't like our truth. Now, they have the right to think this way in their own personal lives. What a sad way to live. But they do not have the right to push this onto our children and to lie to our children and indoctrinate them using tax dollars, using our public school system. This is what they're doing. They're doing it through teachers' unions who have infiltrated our government through government unions and other government unions, by the way, who have infiltrated, who have brought this Marxist agenda into our country. So those are just a few highlights. I could go on for hours.
Thank you, Rebecca. That is great. We hear the audience that is watching us today are all in agreement with what your work has been about. We truly support what you're doing. We interviewed Newt Gingrich a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how important it's going to be for President Trump's next term to focus on education. I know that people are some of the things that are going on in our education system, but they're frustrated because they don't know what to do to stop this. Teachers are being told to teach in one way with one point of view. The curriculum is said that way. Their fellow students attack them if they disagree with what they say. So some people are afraid to speak up. How do we turn this all around?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I'm going to answer it this way. You know, when our founders developed our educational system, they created what was called a classical liberal arts education. And within that classical education, first of all, the Holy Bible was our first textbook. Every textbook that was built after that, the McGuffey Readers, the Spellers, they all used scripture to teach the alphabet. A is for Adam, S is for sin. So our faith, our country was built on our faith. That's why we're free, because God's the author of liberty. So our schools brought that in, and we weren't teaching religion. We were teaching morals, virtues. We were also teaching outstanding literature, at which the unions and their friends have removed. And if you're unaware, Common Core was the final blow, just taking out great literature. So one of the great writers that we used to study was a man named Henry David Thoreau. And Thoreau has a quote, one of my favorite quotes, and that is, "There are thousands hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root." So I want to start with that quote to explain the answer that I believe we need for our educational system and for our country. And that is, we have to strike at the root of the problem. So what we've been doing in America is reacting. We're constantly reacting to the next nightmare in our schools, in our culture. So we fight against the sex ed, we fight against the 1619 Project, we fight against the gas tax, we fight against Planned Parenthood, whatever horrible thing they're doing. Why don't we just take out the root of the evil that's brought this into our culture? Well, in 1958, a gentleman named Skousen worked within the FBI, and he wrote a book called The Naked Communist. And in that, and I recommend it highly to anyone listening, The Naked Communist. In that book, he let us know about 45 goals of the Communist Party to infiltrate and undermine the America, the United States of America. His list of 45 was actually read into the congressional record in 1963. What our Congress has been doing, I don't know, because they have now accomplished 44 of their 45 goals. One of those goals was to infiltrate the teacher unions, dumb down the curriculum. And I don't have it memorized, but I'd be happy to send you the goals. And they've done that. They infiltrated the teacher unions, dumbed down the curriculum. They have, undermined parents and all of that. So my solution would be, we need to attack the root. We need to dig out the root. How did they do all this? Through the unions, through the long march of the left, marching into our institutions, right? How did they take over those institutions? Through government unions. Way too many Americans still think government unions are good, think that they care about them, think that they're looking out for them because they want to get a raise, they want to break. It's not true. They're using you. They're using the billions and billions they collect from us tax-free to actually undermine our country. They are domestic enemies that we have to fight. So in my opinion, it's the unions. We have to address them. We have to be aware of what they're really doing. Instead of being faithful to something we think they are, we need to become aware of what they really have become. And I think we need to root them out. It would be my goal to make government unions illegal, not regular unions. Regular unions are a completely different entity. They're not doing collective bargaining with politicians they put in office. They're not controlling our public schools. So that would be my solution, would be dealing with that root. As part of that root, they work with literally hundreds of special interest groups. ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center, who's put Jewish groups, Christian groups, Republican conservative groups on a hate map. The teachers unions work with them, Southern Poverty Law Center, and they work with Planned Parenthood and all these groups that are undermining us. So rather than try to fight them all off, let's dig out the root. Once the root is dug out, all the problems could go away.
Rebecca, as a parent of three, we naively move into a school district that we know is good in advance. We drop the kids off. We do the normal parent things. Then I learned all this from you, and it's so shocking and disappointing. What is their end game? There's got to be some end game goal in here. What's this all about for them?
Yeah, wow. What a great question. Control, power, government. They want big government. I can't say that they're all bad people. Maybe they're naive. Maybe they haven't studied history and don't realize that every time government gains full control, the people are damaged. Every time you get this kind of Marxist government, you always end up with communism. You always end up with millions of people murdered. When we look back at Nazi Germany, they were sexualizing the children there too. They took the children out to an island and just took them from the parents for I don't remember how many months, and they all came back pregnant, and their minds had been indoctrinated. All I can say, Mitch, to that is it's a difference in worldviews. So those of us who believe in the American experiment, those of us who understand American history and realize what our founders had to fight to give us this freest, most amazing country that has ever existed. We believe in free governance. We believe that it's we the people, that we the people are in charge, that the government works for us. They don't boss us. We believe in free enterprise. We believe in capitalism. Well, those that are running the unions, they don't believe like us. They're enjoying the benefits of it, but they have a very different belief system. They believe that the bigger the government, the better. They believe government should take care of people. We all believe that it's the place of the synagogue, it's the place of the church to care for the needy. That's what scripture teaches, but they believe that that's big government's place. So the best thing I can say is they just have a completely different worldview. And as we look around the world, we can see how their worldview is working out. It's not working out so well. People fight to come to America. People give up everything to come to America. When I was younger, my family took in Vietnamese refugees who had come to America on a dinky little boat and separated from their family. It was two sons that came, separated from their family, risked their lives to come to America, and got educated and jobs here and became citizens and brought their families because they were terrorized at home. So it's worldviews, and we need to fight for our worldview. We're right. We're right.
Rebecca, that's such great information. Kind of have a two-part question. You heard me talk a little bit about Ronald Reagan's farewell address. And one of the things that I've practiced and my wife has practiced is we talk to our kids about issues, whether it's at the dinner room table, and that's what Reagan talked about as well, is we as parents can't rely only on the school system to educate our children. I always say, don't let school interfere with your education. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about how parents can get involved. And then we also have a question from Kurt B, who says, what's the next step in fighting against these powerful unions?
That's great. So help me not to forget Kurt's question as I address your first question. Okay. So all I can say to you, Bruce, amen. Amen. So many parents have forgotten their place. They have bought into, oh, the government's going to educate my child. Oh, it's just easier for me to drop my child off at the schoolhouse door. I've literally heard mothers say to me, oh, I need my me time. Sorry, mama. Sorry. You have a baby, you have a child, you don't have any more me time. Take me time when they're taking a nap. We have to breathe in the truth into our children. Scripture teaches us this, that it should be written over our doors, that we should be feeding our children with the truth, God's truth, and of freedom and righteousness. And if we don't, then the world will teach our children for us, and they will not teach them our ways, and they will not teach them God's ways. They'll teach them humanist ways, and that's frightening. So amen to what you said, Bruce. Parents have to step it up. The other thing parents need to be aware of, just in case your group's not aware, a lot of parents feel that they are stepping up by serving on the PTA. Well, I have a whole chapter in my book that helps parents to understand that in the 1960s, the teachers' unions bullied the PTA into a stance of neutrality. So ever since the 60s, the PTA hasn't been standing up for parents or kids. Now, your local, I was PTA mom, I was PTA teacher, I paid my PTA dues, I fought for the kids. So at the local level, these parents and teachers are doing great stuff. Trouble is, a very small fraction of their dues stay at the local level, the rest go up. And what are they doing at the state and national level of the PTA? They're pushing the sex ed, they're pushing the anti-discipline, they're standing lockstep with the teachers' unions. They've been completely infiltrated and taken over by the teachers' unions. So another thing parents can do is please stop joining the PTA. You can change to a PTO. You can do that just by typing in PTO online, and that's a private organization. So that's something else that parents can do. The third thing I would ask parents to do is adopt a teacher. We have a program on our website for kidsincountry.org, and you just click on the menu item, adopt a teacher. It takes 3 minutes to read the little flyer we came up with. I would say it's probably, I don't have the exact number right now, but about 85% of teachers are still paying union dues. Many of those teachers are Jewish, are Christian, are Muslim, are people of faith who don't believe in what's being done to our country, yet they're paying the very organizations that are destroying us from the inside. Like I said, the unions collect billions annually tax-free from these educators. So it's really important to adopt teachers and educate them to help them, because now to get to Kurt's question, he wanted to know what's the next step. So in my mind, Kurt, I have this dream I talk to everyone I know who's running for Congress right now, who's a decent person, and ask them, look, do you have the courage to bring a bill? I want to bring a bill. I'll be a citizen sponsor. I want to bring a bill to make unions illegal. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of teachers who have found their courage now, because when we brought our lawsuit, most of them were too afraid because they didn't have a voice. Well, we helped them find their voice. So they're with us. They're ready to go on record. They're ready to testify at the United States Congress and testify how these unions bully teachers, lie to us, use us, undermine us, destroy our profession, how we have PTSD, how we can't teach anymore. And it's all the fault of unions. So we're ready to take on that battle. We're begging someone to bring that to bring a bill. And so that's one of the things we'd like to do. But in order for a legislator to find the courage to bring a bill like that, we have to change the narrative in the country. So that's why we're asking people to adopt teachers. That's why I'm out as much as I can, anywhere I can go, helping people to understand the truth about that they're not teachers' unions, they're Marxists, posing, masquerading as teachers' unions. And so if we could start, someone like you, Kurt, you can adopt every teacher, every parent, every person you know, and educate them. And once they learn the truth, then we start changing the narrative around the country. When the United Teachers Los Angeles came out and said, I'm not shocked. I already because I know what the unions do. The more you see that, the real colors, or can help change the narrative. So changing the narrative, educating teachers. 85% are still paying unions and still either think the unions are doing something good for them, or they're too terrified to leave. So they need your support. And then we can move forward with getting these unions out of our schools and literally out of our government, all of our government agencies. They don't belong there. They're destroying us. So that's just one answer.
Very impressive, Rebecca. I think you are uniquely positioned to answer this question. How do you think this lockdown, not the pandemic, but the lockdown is affecting children and their growth and their future?
Okay, so our internet's a little unstable and I only heard part of the question, so I'm going to restate it. I think you asked me, how do I think the lockdown is impacting children emotionally and educationally? Did I get it?
Close enough.
Okay.
Perfect.
So first of all, do not believe the teachers' unions and their lies that children are emotionally unstable, okay? They're trying to sell us something called social emotional learning. It's more Marxism. Reject it. Children are emotionally unstable when their parents aren't doing a good job. So parents are the most important piece for children. Parents and their family, grandparents, supporting that within that family unit. So, but do I think the lockdown is harming the children? Yeah, I do. So first of all, I was praying that God would rescue our children from our public schools. So full disclosure, when the lockdown came, I said, thank you, God, for rescuing our children from the public schools. I was happy the kids were removed from dangerous schools, removed from Marxist lessons telling them to hate our country. I was happy about that. However, our children are being used as pawns right now. They're being used in pawns in a very nasty game to undermine our country, to undermine our schools even more, to undermine parents, and that's dangerous. I also think children deserve to be involved with each other, to be in sports, to be in after-school programs, to be in band, to be in choir, drama, whatever it is that those children love to do. They all also deserve to learn. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of answering this in a roundabout way. Sadly, too many of our schools are not doing a good job. So I'm glad to see our kids out of that mess. But there's these draconian measures to close really great schools too. That's a problem. So I think our children need to be in school. They need to be learning an accurate, excellent education, outstanding curricula. They need to be learning to love their country and serve their country and put others first, and to be moral citizens so we could save this republic. And they need to be given the opportunity to be around their friends and to engage in activities and sports and all of that. Yes. It can't come soon enough. And I believe the teachers' unions have closed our schools down as a 100% political ploy to destroy our president. I believe that for many reasons. And I mean, in California, for instance, zero children from the ages 18 down, zero have died from coronavirus. Why are we locking our kids down? Doesn't make any sense. They're not following the science. And let me just say something about the science real quick. The National Education Association rewrote the scientific method. They crossed out that scientific method needs to be based on empirical evidence and repeated, you know, how you practice it over and over and test your theory. They crossed all that out and they changed it to scientific method is scientific theory and consensus. And then they only take the consensus of radical leftists who agree with climate change is created by man's behavior and it's out of control, or who agree with macroevolution, or who agree with multiple genders. So then they only take the scientific theory of those that agree with the teachers' unions and the leftists. So don't trust their science. Their science is a bunch of baloney. And the CDC is unionized. The CDC has on their website a page about young men having sex with men. They are supportive of what California governor just signed to allow, you know, a 24-year-old man to have sex with a 14-year-old kid and not be, you know, arrested. That's ridiculous. The CDC agrees with that stuff. It's because they're unionized. So, so I guess my short answer is, if it's a safe school, if it's a great school, our kids need to be in it. And they shouldn't be locked down. If it's a dangerous school, we need to close that school down, or we need to revamp that school so kids can be in a safe school. And kids don't need to be locked down. They need to be out having fun. They need to be kids. They need to be learning.
Rebecca, you're absolutely fabulous. I love to hear what you're saying. It's such an important issue. Education is so important. Would love to talk to you after the show about how the Jewish Republican Alliance can partner with you to help some of these things come to fruition. Our audience is loving you as well. We have a question from David B, but first he stopped and say how deeply moved he was by your speech at the RNC convention, and then summarized it by saying, how can we bring education back to the forefront of political issues? And he suggested perhaps something like an education bill of rights.
Well, first of all, thanks, David, for the question and for the really kind compliment. You really encouraged me. And I'm still pinching myself that I got to speak at that RNC. That was God's blessing in every way. And wow, just what an honor. What an honor to get to support the greatest president in our lifetimes. And to fight for this republic that is so important. It's just, there's nothing more important than fighting for these freedoms, and at this point in history. So thank you for that, and thank you for watching. Okay, now I sort of forgot David's question. Can you repeat it?
No, it's okay. Don't worry. So his question is, what you're doing is so important. How about education? How can we bring education back to the forefront of issues that is being discussed in our political environment? I mean, everybody's talking about COVID and they're going back and forth, but education has kind of been put to the back burner for now, and it's probably more important than anything. And then he suggested something called an education bill of rights, which I don't know much about, but what are your thoughts on how we can move this agenda that you're fighting to the forefront?
Yeah, well, I love it. Thank you, David, for this question. So Jewish Republican Alliance, of course, can help us. So I agree with you. Education needs to be first. That's why the left is creating this phony crisis around COVID. That's why they created a phony crisis saying that the president and Russia were involved. What all their phony crisis, right? So they keep putting forth phony stuff to get everybody all upset and distracted, while something very important like education is being destroyed on purpose in order to destroy our culture. So yes, education needs to be put at the forefront. I love your idea of Education Bill of Rights. We've actually discussed that here at For Kids and Country. Would love to work on that together. And the other thing is, President Trump understands the importance of educational freedom and the importance of education. Last December, I was invited to the White House and I got to sit at a round table with President Trump and Secretary DeVos and others, and we all got to share our testimony of the importance of giving parents the right to choose the school that's right for their child. No matter the situation, no matter the state, everyone should have choice in education. And President Trump was so excited. I mean, he just said, let's get it done. And so he has put forth something called Education Freedom Scholarships. And what I love about this idea and the way it's written is it's not the federal government funding education. It's actually a tax credit. So an American citizen like you or like me, we can say, I want to give a donation toward that kid over there, and I want to help that kid get into a private Jewish school or a private Christian school or a charter school or an online school or whatever is best for that child. And you can give that donation and the money follows the child, and then you get a tax credit. What I love about this, and the federal government is what arranges it and supports it. What I love about the idea is if leftists come in and start to destroy it, then we just quit giving toward the system. So it's not like the government's controlling education. The other thing I love is they have specific protections for religious liberties, religious schools, where they cannot be forced to teach some government agenda. And various other protections are within this bill. The president's been trying to pass this. What has been the problem? There's not enough Democrats on board. The one Democrat who signed on, I can't think of his name right now, a great guy from Tennessee, black, who's been serving his state for years. The minute he signed on to this bill, what did the Democrat Party do? They removed him from the ballot for his re-election campaign this year. That's evil. So because he stands with kids and giving parents freedom, they remove him from the ballot. That's evil. People need to know the truth about what Democrats are doing and how they're undermining children and families in our country. So standing with President Trump and this education freedom scholarship is huge. We need to stand with him. Stand with Secretary DeVos, or I don't know if she's going to serve a second term. Whoever's there, we stand with that person. And then we at For Kids and Country, we will do anything to get this truth out there. So just supporting us, helping, working with you at Jewish Republican Alliance, helping us to get our voices out there. And speaking of, this is just for you guys. We haven't been sharing this with public audiences, only audiences we trust. But For Kids and Country, we just signed with Hollywood producers who are strong conservatives, and we are creating a movie right now. And our movie is an expose of the evil unions and the evils they've been doing. And we have some powerful voices. We are just about to release our promo video. It should be ready in about a week. And we're not going to be putting that out there on social media because we know how the unions are. They'll just work to undermine us in some way. But we will be releasing it to groups like you so that you can see our 5-minute promo and understand what it's about. We are looking for synagogues to host showings of our movie. It should come out in spring 2021, so just a few months from now. We're looking for synagogues and churches to host viewings of our movie. We're looking for organizations like yours to host viewings. We're looking for folks to donate toward it because we have to raise like $500,000 to really get it out there. We're just looking for all kinds of support with this. So Republican women's clubs, whoever would like to step in and support. So that's another way that we can move forward. Like I said, we have to change the narrative. The goal of our movie is to change the narrative to such a degree that our legislators will get brave enough to do the right thing, and that we can completely just our whole public school system needs to be washed out. I mean, we were never meant to be public schools, by the way. That came in from the humanism and the teachers unions about 100 years ago. We need to get back to what we used to be. We can keep the buildings. We just need to change all the mess that they've created on the inside. That's what we want to do for Kids and Country. That's our goal. We're very well connected within the United States Department of Education and the White House, and we will keep doing all we can to get even more connected. We have a goal to show our movie in a White House viewing, we're hoping, and a congressional viewing. So anything you guys can do to help, if you have connections, let us know. We'd love
Count
that.
us in, Rebecca. We're in.
Thank you.
Rebecca, as always, I love your fighting spirit. So I'm going to give you a compliment and then a question from the audience. Daniel H. says, thank you for your tremendous insights to a horrific fight in this war. Yes, this is one of several fronts in our war. The question comes from Karina G. Wanted to know if private schools and charter schools have to follow these same curriculums. And what about homeschooling? How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I had, it was kind of breaking up. So I think somebody named Karina
Yes.
asked a question about, do private schools, charter schools, and homeschools have to follow state curricula or federal?
The curriculum that you talked about, Common Core or Commie Core, or whatever you want to call it.
I love it, Commie Core, that's good. Okay. The truth is, Karina, the private schools and homeschools should not have to, but many are. Many are. The charter schools, unfortunately, are public schools. So they are required to do whatever the public schools are doing. Now, this is sort of a complex question and a complex answer. So I'm going to try to break it down. It all depends on the leadership. So my husband is the president of a charter school board. They have 3 schools. They're not teaching that nasty curriculum because their school board is committed to making sure they don't. So the safe thing about a lot of charter schools is their school board is selected by the community. They're appointed. Now the teachers union cut them down for that. That's because the teachers unions can't control them. So we can't believe their lies. The problem with public schools is most public school boards are controlled by the teachers unions. They have spent all kinds of money putting people on the school board, and so they're controlling everything. So if your school board is controlled by the teachers unions, you're going to have all the nasty curricula. If your charter school is not controlled by the teachers unions, you're going to be able to do some great things. However, I'll tell you just a quick story. I'm working with a school called Gompers Preparatory Academy. It's a charter school in San Diego, doing amazing things for the kids. So what happened? The teachers unions busted in, forced them into unionizing by using deceit to deceive enough teachers. They said, oh, sign this. We want to give you better health care. And these teachers, without reading it, signed it, got unionized. Now it's been this massive fight to get out of this union. They never even got a vote. It was all deceit. This is why educating our teachers is so important, so they don't get deceived anymore. So some charter schools are doing a great job and not teaching these things. Some charter schools are teaching these things. Depends on the leadership. Private schools should be 100% protected, but more and more and more, I am seeing private schools that are buying into the lies. Here's the problem. It's whenever they take government funding. So if a school, homeschool, anyone is connected to government funding at this point, they can be forced to do government curriculum. So here's the answer to that problem. And I've been having this discussion with some folks at the federal level, and I will do all I can to get this truth out there. When our founders wrote the Constitution, they did not put the word separation of church and state into the Constitution. It's not there. It doesn't exist. But you meet lawyers who think it's there because they've never read the Constitution. So what happened was really, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptist ministers who were concerned about their religious liberties. They thought the government was going to trample upon their liberties. And Thomas Jefferson wrote to them and said, oh, no, the government can't trample on your liberties because there's a wall of separation between church and state. In other words, the church is protected from the state. Well, thanks to teachers' unions and other leftists who infiltrated the Supreme Court, infiltrated our legislature at different times in our history, we have had some very bad decisions that have used those words, separation of church and state, incorrectly, corruptly, in my opinion. And so now they're telling us that our schools can't have any, like biblical, like the Ten Commandments. You can't teach the kids morals anymore because of this separation of church and state. Well, that is a lie with a capital L, big fat lie. Yes, you can at a public school, at a charter school, any school, teach morals. Yes, you can. So as a country, we have to re-educate people that this wall of separation of church and state is not in the Constitution, that it's actually protection of our religious liberties, and we have to work to overturn those rulings or pass legislation to overturn the negative that happened in the 70s, basically, to undermine our religious liberties. So that's a long answer. Basically, what I'm saying is once we can deal with that issue, the separation of church and state, and redeem it to what it's supposed to be, then nobody's going to have to worry. You can get your federal funding, and you just teach what's right. You don't have to teach some horrible curricula. Our founders gave. When we first started, if a community wanted to build a school, they would get some federal funding, some money to help build their school, to help bring in a teacher. They weren't told what to teach or how to teach. So we just have to fix that, the corruption.
That is so true, Rebecca. I have a comment and a question. Marilyn A. says, we have such a huge job ahead of us, but thank you for your passion, your dedication, and courage to stand up for children. So I wanted to pass that along to you. And then we also have a question from Judy K., who says, there are bad teachers out there, and we have the problem of tenure in the public school system. Is there any changes to that being proposed, or is that a matter of just standing up to the unions and trying to have them make some changes in that regard?
Yeah, well, first of all, Marilyn A., thank you. Thank you for your kind words, and I look forward to working with you. And then Judy, bad teachers. Oh boy. Wow. So the answer is we need to get teachers unions out of our schools. That's the answer, because they're the reason we're protecting bad teachers. So even tenure was brought about to protect teachers. It was supposed to be like right now, if a teacher refuses to call a boy a girl, some boy thinks he's a girl, and the teacher refuses to go along with that, she can lose her job. We don't want that teacher to lose her job. Tenure is supposed to protect those kind of teachers, which proves that tenure is a bunch of malarkey. It doesn't work. What happened is the teachers' unions, they always start things, oh, it looks really nice. Yeah, we're doing this to protect the rights of teachers. And then they bring in their ugliness. So what they did was they brought in collectively bargained grievance procedures. That's the real problem. Tenure's not the big problem. Collective bargaining is. So teachers think that collective bargaining is so great. They get so mad at me when I say we shouldn't have collective bargaining. But the reason they get mad is they don't understand it. What happened when well, let's go back just a little in history. So 60s and 70s, suddenly teachers and government employees were allowed to unionize. That was never allowed before. We all knew, even the leaders of the unions knew, you can't unionize government workers. It's corrupt because everything in the government is political, and you can't have a union bargaining with a politician they put in office. It's corrupt. So we all knew we shouldn't have had unions in the government sector, but the unions pushed for it and got it. Okay, then JFK, John F. Kennedy, signed an executive order giving unions, government unions, the right to collectively bargain. What happened then that people don't realize? The minute teachers were permitted to do collective bargaining, parents were removed from the equation. In the past, teachers would do something called meet and confer. The teachers and the school board and the parents were all involved, and they would make decisions that were best for the community and best for the children, best for everyone. Teachers weren't being treated poorly like the unions want to claim. It was what was best for everyone. When collective bargaining came in, parents were literally removed from the equation, no longer allowed to be in the room. What does that mean? That means the taxpayer was removed. The customer, the parent, and the taxpayer, the parent paying for it, were both removed. How corrupt could that be? So we have to get rid of collective bargaining. The only way we're ever going to get rid of that is to get rid of the unions. The unions are the root cause of the problem. Tenure is a branch issue. Bad teachers are a branch issue. Unions are the root. We dig out that root, we get rid of all these other millions of problems that the unions cause. So yeah, my broken record is we have to take the unions out.
Rebecca, you are absolutely fabulous. Mitch and I both want to thank you so much for being on our show today and talking about the important message that you have to bring.
Thank you. I'm so touched to be here and just love your group. One time when I came to spoke, someone gave my husband a lapel pin of the flag of Israel and the American flag, and I love that pin, and we are out of town right now. I wanted to wear his pin, but I apologize. I forgot to bring it. But just love the work you're doing. Honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Big fan. I'm so glad that the nice part is that you're doing incredible work with children, as Karen with the American Freedom Alliance is doing her thing, the Jewish Republic Alliance is doing our things. We're all rowing in the same direction from different angles, but it's teamwork that's so desperately needed right now.
Yes.
And we want to partner with you. So let's talk about that, how we can work
Oh,
together.
I'm thrilled. I would love that. Yes. And with American Freedom Alliance. Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Ladies
God bless
and gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. The Jewish Republican Alliance is uniting and energizing conservatives to take action on behalf of America and Israel, with great speakers and great patriots like Rebecca Friedrichs, who is here today. We're giving you the ammunition you need to be able to fight in the world of ideas on the great stage of America here today. If you want to find out more about our organization, go to our website, jewishrepublicanalliance.org. You can go to any of our social media accounts. Our platforms are on Facebook and Twitter, and also on YouTube and Instagram. On YouTube, you can, if any of your friends have missed this great talk today or any of our past shows, they can go to YouTube, search Jewish Republican Alliance, and find this there so they can hear it and send it to their friends. We need your help. The Jewish Republican Alliance needs you to join us, become a member, send us your donations. We need your help to take this message across the country. So until we meet again, we wish you all a great weekend, a peaceful Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom to everyone until we meet again. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.